We're theme park families.
Theme park families.
We're theme park families.
Won't you join us now?
We're theme park families.
Thanks for joining us, we aim to please.
If roller coasters got you weak in the knees,
We're theme park families.
if you wanna find the best dessert or
Take a potty break with privacy,
find a coaster that is tame for little ones,
or one to make you scream.
we're theme park families.
Everybody's ready to babies.
Rescuing you all from life's luxuries.
We're theme park families.
We're theme park families.
Press the space bar. Get it?
Yay!
Welcome everyone to episode 5. I'm Adam.
And I'm Andrew.
And thanks for joining us for Theme Park Families. A lot of great stuff to talk about today as we're now in the middle of July. Hopefully all of you are getting out to the parks and having a great time and having lots of fun that we hope to hear about as we get on later into the summer. We said last episode that we were going to talk about Great Adventure as our first park of the month, but we were able to get to Great Adventure and have a real nice long conversation with Kristen Siebeneicher, the Director of Communications, about Justice League and future plans for Great Adventure. And so we're going to move that up to the next episode as we're going to devote the entire episode to Six Flags Great Adventure. So it'll be a Great Adventure-a-palooza of sorts.
Yep.
Before getting into today's show, we want to give a nice shout out to Ski Ball Man on iTunes, who gave us a nice 5-star review, and he stated, another quality amusement park podcast, thanks. And so thanks to you for doing that, and for those of you who are subscribing on iTunes, throwing a nice little review in there kind of, I think, helps us out a little bit. About 10,000 more of those, and I think we'll start getting noticed on iTunes. But every little bit helps, so thanks a lot for that. Today we're going to discuss our trip to much maligned Michigan's adventure with EB and 2 of his kids, going to Six Flags America and meeting a new friend, and we'll also have our ride and tip of the days. But first, as always, we started off with Andrew's news.
If not riding coasters will give you the blues, it's Andrew's news. A 14-year-old girl fell off the sky ride at the Great Escape a few weeks back. Many news stations showed the coverage of the girl letting go and grabbing onto the crowd's arms.
I know Coaster Radio has covered this topic, and we haven't listened to that episode yet, and we'll see eventually what they said about it. And I know this happened a while ago, but since we had been to the park, and I don't think a lot of people have been to that park, I wanted to be able to talk about this as well. So it was 2 years ago that we went there in our first year of being theme park fans, and the Sky Ride.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
We didn't go on it.
We didn't go on it. That's exactly right. That's a thing. Great Escape does not have a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a small park. And why didn't we go on it?
We just didn't need to. Well, because it's very useless, because one, you can walk faster than it. It goes like a mile per hour.
It is so slow, it's ridiculous.
And I mean, it's good to exercise. You don't need to waste your time on something that will get you where you need to go slower. I mean, it helps if it's a very big park and it's a crowded, hot, sunny day. I mean, I get that, but seriously, you don't need it for that park.
Some sky rides can be kind of interesting, like at Camel Beach. Why is that sky ride fun?
Oh, because you're going up the mountain and it's such a nice view. That's probably the best one we've done, and they use it for the skiing too, right? That's what they use it for?
Oh, definitely. And I would think it's a lot like Lake Compounce, which we haven't been to yet. I think we're going to get there later this summer. But when it gives you a nice view and everything, that's fine. But at the Great Escape, it goes like 20, 30 feet off the ground at most, and you really don't see much, so we never really saw the point to do it. And again, we were there 3 days in 2 different visits, and we didn't choose to do it. Yeah, so kind of strange that this got national attention. And so a lot of people saw the video, and a lot of media outlets played it. And what did you think when you saw the video?
I thought that she was just being dumb, and she was probably up there with a lot of other people, so she was just being funny for her friends and silly, just to make them laugh or whatever. And it was her fault. It was her fault.
And I guess the rumor is that she was trying to touch a tree with her foot or something and then slipped out of the bars. It's a very strange accident. Well, a couple things on that. First of all is the footage that we've all seen with the guy taking the footage on his phone. And he's so concerned, like, oh, Great Escape has nothing in place to save this poor girl. Well, first of all, this is a very odd occurrence that doesn't really happen much, if ever. So they were supposed to spring into action that quickly. That seems kind of unfair to criticize. Plus, he's so concerned, what does he do to help? Oh, takes out his cell phone and films it. That's a good Samaritan right there. And then, gives it to media outlets for who knows what sum maybe he got for that. So to me, that seemed a little petty. This kind of reminds me of the situation with Kentucky Kingdom. Did you see that footage of the guy who was banned from Kentucky Kingdom for having a cell phone out?
I didn't quite see the footage, but I heard about it. I mean, I think it's a little silly, but I don't know who to decide if it's the guy. I'm kind of leaning towards the guy's fault, but it's just a phone.
Well, it's just a phone, but we know lots of people have been injured from it. So in a situation like this, it's hard to really blast a 14-year-old girl. Teenagers make mistakes, and that's one thing. But this got such negative attention all throughout the country, and it looks bad. So at least I'm glad the media outlets said it was rider error, but eventually the question becomes, are they going to take away any potential ride that a person's ability to get themselves in trouble is there? And who knows how many rides that can eliminate. Reminds me of a story I just heard that came out right around the same time. I don't think you heard of it, bud. But at King's Dominion, on their tornado slide, a woman fell off and hit her head and got hurt pretty badly. So you wonder if those kind of funnel slides are in trouble too.
Oh, yeah.
Because it does take a bit of strength.
Yeah.
You guys did that recently at Holiday World, that same funnel slide. Could you see the potential of getting hurt on that?
Yeah, but there aren't that many things to bash your head on, like.
Yeah, she fell backwards off the raft, I guess, towards the bottom, and hurt her head. It was really, and had other injuries too.
I've seen those videos where some teenagers, they just jump off the tubes, and they just go down it like a body slide, and they just break the rules and stuff.
Yeah, that was interesting that you remember that. That was a couple of years ago we took a look at that. I think that might be in Europe or something like that, a funnel slide just like all these other ones, and they jump out of the tube and they're sliding down the sides, just being completely reckless. And so those are the kind of slides where those kind of things can happen. So you hate to blast a 14-year-old for getting herself in that trouble, but it's a touchy subject, and is that the park's fault at all? And will the rides like that go away? Lake Compounds just announced that they're closing their Sky Ride, and you wonder if that's going to be forever, and you wonder if it's a direct response to what happened at the Great Escape.
Dutch Wonderland's Merlin Mayhem finally has some track being added to the supports in July.
So odd here. That was announced over the winter, and our good friend Ariel had some funny interaction with the park about, is it going to be opening? And they replied over the summer, and she put summer 2018, to which they responded, no, it should be open this summer. Hard to know what they're really waiting for. Does this seem kind of late in the year to still be adding lots of track?
Yeah, it's summer. They should have been doing it in winter, nevertheless starting it in summer. I don't understand why they're doing it this late, because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so an odd choice there. How much is it going to help them in this operating year? But who knows? Maybe they had some issues with their construction that we just don't know about.
Maybe. Camelback Mountain Resort opened up the Pocono Pipeline Mountain Slide, a dual track at 2,800 feet long that lets you race a friend, that replaces the alpine slide that closed 15 years ago.
So exciting. What do you think about that?
I'm super glad that they reopened it because I've never done one of those. I think you've had when you were a little bit younger. So I can't wait to do them because I think I can do it by myself. And I won't be like some of those people where they go flying off the tracks. You've seen a couple of videos of that.
I think a lot of our younger listeners probably have never done one before, as they were a little bit dangerous in the 80s and 90s. They're sort of these concrete troughs that are sort of like a luge run. And you have a plastic cart that you ride in with a little joystick in the middle that you can control your speed applying the brake. Well, the problem is too many people never applied the brake, and which leads to crazy crashes. So it was very unsafe. There were lawsuits back then at Action Park and other places. Well, they announced that this is a fiberglass slide, so it's supposed to be a lot safer, and the carts are supposed to be safer as well. And I think this is exciting. It's been a while, but do you remember riding the mountain coaster at all?
I do remember we've done 2. Once when I was like around 3 years old.
Yeah, you did one year when you were 3, and then
at Greek Peak,
and then
one
at Camel Beach.
Camel Beach, and I mean they're fun. I just can't wait to compare them.
Yeah, I find the mountain coasters a little bit tame and sort of very controlled. These, in comparison, you have so much more freedom of movement. So we're excited, and we hope to get to Camel Beach at some point to ride that.
Are the Action Park ones still there?
Action Park ones, no, they're closed down. I don't even know if you can see the troughs anymore. I think they've completely gotten rid of the concrete tracks. They built a extreme mountain bike run in that area, so I don't even think you can see them anymore. But you could always see at Camel Beach the cement troughs kind of rotting away, and you wonder if they've used the same course. So excited for that. And if they come back in great numbers, I think enthusiasts will really like those more than the mountain coasters. I was pretty glad when EB from Coaster Radio announced that he'd be going to Michigan's Adventure, because I think if he never decided to go there, I don't know if we would have ever made that trip specifically to get there. And so EB's kids and my kids by now, after all the meetups, are pretty close, so it's a great chance for them to get to see each other since that we're in New York and they are in Indiana. So I was excited about it. In an odd bit of geography, we actually had to drive through Canada, which made it a much shorter ride. Where we are in central New York and then going to northern Michigan, we had to drive through Canada, and that's always a bit nerve-wracking. I don't know if you ever feel this way, but it's a little intimidating going through customs and answering questions, and at times I sort of feel like a bit of a criminal. It's a little nerve-wracking trying to sit up straight and be very normal, yes sir, and no, yep, we're doing nothing criminal. What is it like for you going through customs?
Like, I just think of it as a nice, friendly guard trying to make sure we're good people and we're doing good stuff and not trying to, like, disguise ourselves.
Which is good. Yeah, safety is important in the modern world. And the difference between going to Canada versus coming back into America, what's always the difference there?
You're always a lot more serious coming into America than going into Canada, because they're just a lot more strict going into America because they just don't want bad people in America more than Canada.
Yeah, I guess they're a little bit less worried, because whenever we go to Canada, whether it's Canada's Wonderland or La Ronde, or in this case going to Michigan, and we say we're going to a theme park, they're always like, oh yeah, I know that place, it's great, I love this ride, and that kind of thing, versus coming into America is usually a lot more serious.
Yeah.
So driving towards Michigan's Adventure, it's an interesting area where there are really no signs for it. You don't see billboards anywhere, and you kind of go through this little neighborhood, make a left at a small traffic light that you would imagine for a big park would get crazily backed up. And then when you drive past this row of trees, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, shivering timbers, you just see it kind of hovering over the parking lot there. It was a pretty quiet day when we got there right before opening, And it was a quaint park, I thought. The buildings were very neat. Lots of beautiful flower beds. I thought the landscaping was really impressive. And, those are the kind of small little things that I think make a park a lot nicer. They had a lot of small, like, kid carnival rides, like things that you would find from the 60s and 70s. Small rides like Winky the Whale, Speedy Splashers, mini motorcycles, and a mini Enterprise. They looked sort of out of place for a big theme park and just seemed like they belonged in a smaller kind of carnival area. When we got there, we all met at the Mad Mouse. EB and his kids, and Charlie Brooks, who we know from the meetups, and his wife met us there as well. It was good to see all of them. And so, interesting first ride on the Mad Mouse. And we got there just before opening, and the line started to get a little bit big there. And what did you notice was different about the cars on this Wild Mouse? Do you remember what was different about them?
I noticed that they have little tails.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. And there are a few different Wild Mouse cars that are like this, but they had little tails and were sort of modeled after a mouse, so I thought that was kind of cute. And then, interesting, because I didn't know about this ride, but do you remember what was slightly different about the track on this Wild Mouse compared to all others we've done?
It's not like the other Wild Mouses because when they're doing the tight curves, it's kind of banked so it's a little unique and different than the other usual Wild Mouses you see at parks.
Yeah, so after doing research, it was an Arrow-made Wild Mouse. There are a couple of them, including one in California. And so they have banking. They're a little bit more expensive. That's why there weren't that many done. And so for what we know, there are 3 different models that we've done before. The more traditional ones, like Hershey has and Dorney has.
Yeah.
The one with that first big drop, like at King's Dominion. And that's one of our favorites as well. And then this one, so much more comfortable and less jarring with the banking. Really loved it.
But I thought of another one. Doesn't the Raging Cajun ones count?
Well, those are, I think, more classified as spinning coasters, as opposed to, but yeah, they are a lot like Wild Mouses, you're right, at Six Flags America, so that's a great point, too. So kind of a spinning Wild Mouse, so I guess you could say that's kind of its classification there.
Yeah.
After that, we headed to the Big Dipper, which was a chance ride, and all the kids noticed a little plaque on the podium and saw that it was a chance ride. And it was okay for a kid's ride, a little bit better than your typical small ones, and we got a couple of laps around that. Then we headed over to Zach Zoomer, which is like, what other coasters?
It's like the Woodstock Expresses. I thought it was fun. I actually thought it was a little different just because the way it looked and the layout.
Just slightly, yeah. Slight changes, agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. But I love them, and they're great for little kids. Those kind of rides have a very small height requirement with parent at about 36, so I thought it was great.
I always think of those as a mini Thunderbolt at Six Flags New England. That's what I think of them.
Yeah, that's funny. They do stylistically look very similar, and Thunderbolt isn't all that much taller than that. A little bit, certainly, but not that big of a difference. After that, we went over to Corkscrew, and looking at the website for Michigan's Adventure, I thought it was funny some of the wordings they used for this, and Rue, you let me know if this sounds like Corkscrew. I quote, "Dizzying speeds and endless loops will turn you inside out. One of the best corkscrew model roller coaster ride experiences in the world." Does that sound right?
Woo! Nope.
Nope.
It's about 30 seconds of headbanging.
So you did get banged around a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially on the corkscrews.
And, well, you say especially in the corkscrews, that's like 80% of the ride.
Yeah.
So lift hill. Drop.
Pre-drop.
Yeah.
Drop. Curve. 2 corkscrews. Curve. Done.
It's a fine ride for someone doing one of their first coasters with inversions.
Yeah, like Madeline. That was her first inversion.
And a situation where I was so proud of her. She was freaking out a little bit, determined, nope, not going to do it. But we got her on it as we all kind of gave her motivational speeches. And she did it and loved it afterwards. I think she said she immediately wanted to get back on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, if I did it and it was my first corkscrewing coaster, then I probably liked it a bit better. But, I mean, I've ridden so many other big coasters that it was Okay.
Yeah, okay. It was maintained fine, but other than that, nothing too great. We headed over to Shivering Timbers after that. So what did you think? I think we only did it one time.
I did it twice.
Oh, so you got... That's right. I was with the younger kids there. That's right. So I was with the younger kids while they were doing a couple of other rides. You got to do it twice. So you might know a little bit better. So what did you think?
I thought it was great. I mean, definitely I wish there was a little more terrain, more trees. I thought it was a good first drop, and the airtime moments were well done. I mean, it's a good coaster, good out and back classic coaster. I mean, it definitely has a different type of wooden coaster to it. I mean, it's not like the old rickety wooden coasters like Thunderhawk or stuff like that.
At Dorney, yeah.
At Dorney, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a step up from that.
Yeah, it's definitely more of an El Toro coaster.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You know, from pictures, I always thought of it as an El Toro light. And I was surprised. That first drop I thought was pretty well done. The airtime moments were like a junior El Toro. That turnaround was kind of fun. The drop coming down off the turnaround I thought was pretty good. And then as EB noticed immediately after his first time, that one section that was retracked was so glassy smooth. And then you go back into the old one and it's a little more chattery.
Yeah, I think after the smooth part is done, that's the roughest part of the coaster. Right after the glossy smooth part, that's the worst part because it's really rough at that part.
And then that heads right into that finishing helix, which I thought was pretty well done. And so unfortunately I only got to do it once. It's weird. In a day where lines aren't that busy, it's not that crazy, but you want to try everything at least once, even, and, you know, bathrooms and eating meals and going to the water park. You just run out of time in a day like that. Plus, Michigan Adventure doesn't stay open that late compared to Cedar Point.
It was a walk-on both times. Literally a walk-on. There's nobody in line.
After that, we decided to head to the water park. It wasn't even that warm a day. It was breezy and overcast, but the kids wanted to see what the water park was like, and being that it might have been one of our only times for a long time going there, I thought a water park visit was probably a good idea. Without going into too many details, it was a nice, clean water park. There were some excellent slides. Really nothing that extreme, mostly family-friendly rides. And one of the things I was impressed about it is that they had a few tube slides for kids who were 42 inches. So many of those tube slides are 48 inches and above when they're so slow and not extreme. So I thought that was good for young kids. One odd thing about it, there are two family tube slides where, you know, the ones where 4 or 5 can sit in a tube and kind of slowly meander down. And they were Mine Shaft and Mammoth River. And you could see from pictures on Coaster Radio's Facebook that they're really nicely landscaped, built into the side of a hill, and really nice ornamental bushes and all that. But the odd thing is, they were both 48 inches. Very strange, right?
Yeah, we didn't do them because we just didn't want to waste our time on those.
Those lines were a bit longer?
Yeah, those are always the longest lines in water parks.
Yeah, and so that wrapped it up. It was a pretty nice water park, and they spent a couple hours there where they all went on different things, and they split up into 2 groups, so I monitored the little kids while they were there. So we decided to head to Thunderhawk, which was Andrew's first SLC, or suspended looping coaster, by
Vekoma.
Mm-hmm. And there was really no line for it there at all. And so you got what row?
I got the first row both times.
You went with Dean the first time in the front row, then we did a parent swap, and EB came on to ride front row with you as well.
Yeah.
And so, your first impression of an SLC, a much maligned coaster in the coaster community, what is your review?
Wow, the other ones must be really rough.
Alright, so what did you think of it?
I thought it was good. I thought it would be a lot longer than it was. Like, when I see the other ones at other parks are always a little more shaky and fast, and this one's kind of calm. And like you said, this one's the smoothest, so geez, I kind of don't want to do the others.
Well, did you have any headbanging at all, from what you remember?
On the first drop and the first 2 inversions, yes.
Okay, so a little bit. I sat in the second row, just did it the one time, and I really didn't notice anything painful at all. I thought it was great, and the setting was really nice. I think in some ways a lot like Laron's, where it's over the water there, and it was a nice setting, and I had no problem with it. I thought it was just fine. That was the coaster that was brought over from Geauga Lake. All right, after that we took the little train ride, and I like a nice train ride in a park. What do you think of trains?
Yeah, I mean, all of them are usually kind of in the middle of nowhere, going or just in the middle of the park, but this one's like around the edge where there are trees and the lake, and I thought that was nice. I kind of think of this one kind of like Cedar Point, where it runs at the edge of the park. The train's not quite that big, but I liked it.
Yeah, nice to have some
Trees.
It's good to have some trees and natural setting. There was a little pond there, and we were talking with the ride operator that he saw some fish in there and loved fishing, and so we had a nice little conversation there. And, kind of a nice setting. And it's just a way to relax a little bit after walking around in the hot sun. A nice train ride, something I always like to do. Well, we were getting towards the end of the day there, and we had about 20 minutes left after eating dinner, and so we sprinted over to Wolverine Wildcat. And unfortunately, EB was with Madeline and didn't get a chance to do it there. I say unfortunately, but maybe I meant fortunately, I'm not sure. Now, did you and Dean get one ride in before Alex and I got there? I think you did one extra one, right? You ended with 3 in a row.
Yeah, we ended with 3 in a row. I don't think it was as bad as you thought it was. We definitely got a little headbanging, but compared to some others that we've done in the past, that one wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's weird. Wooden coasters have different categories of rough as far as I'm concerned. Some can be a little rattly, like Thunderhead at Dollywood. Some of them could be extremely intense with crazy laterals, like
Mean Streak?
Okay, so like Mean Streak. I was thinking of even the Voyage and that level of intensity and roughness. But this was bumpy, and that's the one level of wooden coaster that I don't love, where it feels like it's on triangle wheels. The one experience we had with that at the Great Escape was with the Comet, which was from a couple years ago the worst coaster that I have ever ridden. The only time both Andrew and I said, "Oh, I wish this would stop so we could get off."
I even like kiddie coaster's better than that.
Oh gosh, yeah. And from what I heard, it's a lot better, a lot smoother than it was 2 years ago, so we'll try it again. It was interesting that EB had mentioned before that this was modeled after the Phoenix at Knoebels. And right off the bat, you could tell it pretty early on, where you go through the tunnel before the lift hill, and you could definitely see where it's gaining inspiration from Phoenix. There's one part about 3/4 of the way through the coaster where you have a double down, just like Phoenix's double down. But this had such a hard jolt, which just went through your back on that, and then you curve around to the right and go down again. And those are just awful spots. So you wonder how much longer they'll keep that coaster there. It's just so incredibly in need of lots of work.
Well, maybe I didn't feel it as much because I'm a kid and you're an adult, so...
Yes, it's my old bones that really hurt, Sonny.
Well, you're not quite that old.
Okay,
but
well,
you're
thank you.
old.
And also, keep in mind, where did we sit?
We sat...
Remember?
Yeah, you sat in the very back row. We sat in the middle at the last car.
Because it was the end of the day. If we had tried it in the front, who knows? It might have been a lot better. But yes, back row, so much bumpier. And so that was pretty rough. Well, that about ended the day. You guys did a couple of games afterwards towards the front of the park. The one where you roll the bowling ball and it's got to settle in the valley for a prize, and a few of those kind of things. And then the 3 B family members who were there were gracious enough to give us an interview, which was terrific, and including EB's 3 keys. 3 keys to a great family trip. So let's listen to that now, hear what they have to say, and hear some advice from a coaster expert with EB's 3 keys.
Take it away, guys.
This is Adam.
And Andrew. And Alex.
And we are here in Michigan's Adventure with the offspring of coaster royalty. We have Dean and Madeline, kids of EB from Coaster Radio, and we've spent a great day here on a Friday. A very calm day, surprisingly, as the weather was pretty nice. Lines were pretty short. And Dean, first of all, starting with you. Well, what did you think of the park?
It was really fun. I had lots of fun on the Mad Mouse. My favorite ride probably was Shivering Timbers.
Shivering Timbers. So what did you like about it?
Probably how calm it was and like not as rickety and bumpy.
Well, speaking of rickety and bumpy, which ride was crazily rickety and bumpy?
Definitely Wolverine Wildcat.
Was that the bumpiest ride you've ever been on?
Probably not.
Oh, you've experienced bumpier, but yeah, that was quite a way to end the day. All right. And so, Madeline, what was your favorite ride here?
Corkscrew.
And what was special about Corkscrew for you?
Because I got to do a corkscrew. Barrel roll.
And your first one ever going upside down?
Do a barrel roll. Yes.
Okay, so you love barrel rolls. And you said you would have gone on it multiple times, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so great. So what?
I just didn't get a chance.
But yeah. So I'm sure when we'll come back, you'll get to do it again.
Yeah, I got to do that again.
Ah, very cool. Alex.
I love Mad Mouse.
Oh, that's funny that both of you said Mad Mouse. It was a pretty cool wild mouse, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, awesome. Alex, what was your favorite ride?
My favorite ride was Shivering Timbers because it was like super long and it also like it had it went up. It went up 2 times.
It went up 2 times. And it's funny, you asked, I thought it was a great question. Do you remember what you asked about it in terms of its length, what number it could have been?
No.
You said, could it be the third longest wooden coaster, right?
Yep.
And what would be number 1 and 2?
It would be Beast and Voyage.
Very good. Impressive. A coaster boy knows his knowledge there. Number 1 Beast. And so, yeah, Shivering Timbers is pretty long. So, excellent ride. Andrew, what did you think of the park?
Well, I mean, I like the park. It's a cute little park. It's definitely a little underrated for a Cedar Fair park, but I like it. My favorite one here is probably Thunderhawk because it's my first SLC. I mean, if I've already done some of those, I might have picked Shivering Timbers, but since it's my first one, I would pick that. Then, of course, Shivering Timbers. I mean, it has pretty good airtime, and they retract a lot of it, so it's a little bit smoother.
And so, with the reputation that you know of how SLCs are always regarded by the coaster community, what did you think of it?
I mean, I didn't think it was that bad in terms of headbanging and stuff like that. I mean, like you said, it's one of the smoothest that you've ever done, so, I kind of don't want to do any of the others.
And I think the key there is, where you rode on the train. What spot did you pick?
I rode front row both times.
And on a day like this, was it pretty easy to pick the row that you wanted?
Yeah, there's no wait on both of the ones I went on.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, pretty cool in that way. And certainly, EB, it will be a topic on Coaster Radio, certainly, that we'll talk a lot about it. But first impressions overall of the park.
This is a great park. I was very nervous because years ago when Mike came up, he gave this park a really bad review. He said no shade, terrible operations. He thought it was just an awful park. And no bees. We didn't have any bees in any queue lines. We had no waits for the most part, and there's plenty of shade now. I guess in the 6 or 7 years that it's been, the trees have grown up, and so we had a great time.
What did you guys think of the water park overall?
Gotta love it.
Oh, great!
Gotta love it. I love the body slides, and especially I love Snake Pit.
Oh, Snake Pit! That's great. So, and just for the listeners, Snake Pit does what again?
Well, it does 2 different things.
Oh yeah, what kind of ride is that?
It's a dark water ride. Giant water slide.
Completely black inside? You can't see anything?
Except for a couple holes in it. You might see a couple little bits of brightness there. And then at the end, you just go down a little hole. Then you just splash into water.
Okay, yeah. So those rides are really fun. They had plenty of slides here that were fun.
There is one that's really curvy, one that's really fast, and then one that's a little bit of both.
So you get nice variety in the water park, so that's kind of cool.
I I didn't get to ride the one that's really fast. I did get to ride the one that's pretty curvy and the one that's a little bit of both.
And so 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as the saying goes.
I like it a lot.
Yep. Oh, that's cool. Favorite part of the water park for you? What'd you think?
Probably the yellow body slide near the orange slide. It was a really good slide, and my second favorite was probably the orange slide that is near a yellow and a blue slide.
Oh, okay.
The orange one flopped me onto my back 5 times.
All right, so you like the fast body slides. Excellent.
Yes.
And your favorite part of the water park, Alex?
The green one, and plus I was having a lot of problems. The last time I did the green one was I figured out the problem that I kept having to stay in that pool at the ending because my butt was touching the ground and.
Did you just say butt?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you can't. This is a family theme park podcast.
Bad language.
Oh my gosh, Alex, I think you got a timeout for that, buddy.
Well, not right this one.
And Andrew, your highlight of the water park was?
So my highlight of the water park is the 3 body slides there. I mean, they were fun. I mean, on 2 of the body slides, I was kind of stopped, but on the bluish greenish one, it was fun and fast. At the end of the water slide, I kind of hit my foot, and that didn't feel so great. But I like their water park. It's good for a park like this.
Okay, excellent. And then EB, finally, highlight of the day for you.
The highlight of the day for me, it was just an overall great day. The highlight right now, I think, is the security guard that's eyeing us. She wants us out of here. We spent a long day here. The park closes early, 7 o'clock. So we're trying to stick around as long as we can, but I think we're done.
Yes, and speaking of spending, spend some money here too. So I think they got their money's worth. So great day here at Michigan's Adventure, which we'll definitely try to chat about more as we go along. Say bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Andrew out. Peace. Alex out. Peace.
Oh, very nice.
Wow. See you next time in the next episode.
Goodbye. For now.
For some helpful hints of going to the theme park with families, we hear from Coaster Royalty now, and EB, who's got his EB's 3 keys. So number 3 would be...
I like this, the 3 keys. Okay, the first one I'm going to say is the first aid station is a great air-conditioned place to take a nap.
Ah, interesting. Napping in the first aid on a super hot day if someone's not feeling well, or if it's 105 degrees, which it can be. So very nice. You've done this before.
Absolutely. The smaller the kid, the more pathetic you look, and then they'll take you in, they'll give you a free drink, they'll say lay down, take as much time as you want. It's just a great way to get air conditioning, especially at a hot park.
I did it once.
You did it once?
I was that child.
Madeline's here. Yes, Madeline's here. Yes, Madeline's done it, Dean's done it, Mark's done it. We've always used it.
So maybe splash some water in your face and look really sad, like, help me, please.
Yup.
Oh, that's brilliant.
But I actually feel really bad for myself for
don't
doing that.
No, you shouldn't feel bad. That's a great idea.
And I get to take a
Yeah, when I was in the aid station just taking a nap, it was really fun, and they were just so nice to me. You should try it.
Okay.
They gave me a drink.
That's a great tip. And getting a drink and getting hydrated, cooling off sounds like a great thing. Number 2 of EB's 3 keys.
Get the meal plan. If the park has an all-day meal plan, I think this really works well because kids just like to nibble, generally speaking. They're not going to sit down and eat an $8 meal. And if you can do 4, 5, 6 meals for the price of 3, that's great.
So like today, we were here from 11 to 7, and how many meals were we able to get?
We got 5 meals. 5 meals for $30. That's a pretty good price.
Oh, that's incredible. When you think about how much a meal is, $12 to $15 at a park, wow, did that pay for itself. So brilliant. Yeah.
2 snacks, 3 meals.
2 snacks, 3 meals. And is your belly full?
Yep.
Okay. And did you feel like you had enough, Dean?
I am full, and also I am very entertained by the rides.
Okay, so it worked out pretty well. Yes, Maddie?
Including, we also got a dessert of Dippin' Dots.
Oh, delicious.
Well, that wasn't on the meal plan. That was extra.
Right, that was extra, but still absolutely delicious. And the number 1
tip for EB3 keys would be...
I think managing expectations. This is something that you have to do in advance and maybe even for yourself. Recognize that everybody's got different ride heights and everybody has different interests in what they want to do and different priorities. So talk about it ahead of time. Remind the tall kids, look, we can't necessarily do all the big stuff. Remind the little kids, look, you're going to have to wait sometimes when we do the big stuff. And then as the day goes on, ask, what is your number one priority right now? And then you can kind of make sure everybody's getting what they want. So as the day continues to progress, especially towards the end of the day, all right, there's about 2 hours left. What is one thing you want to do? Everybody picks one thing, and that's what you do before you leave the park. Everyone leaves happy.
And leaving happy really is the punctuation mark on a great day. Yeah, Maddie.
I was really lucky to get the last 2 rides on Thunderbolt. It was one of my favorite rides.
Oh, Thunderbolt, like the Tiki something at Six Flags New England. Yeah.
Yeah, it spins around, like it goes up and down on hills while it's spinning, and then your cart kind of swerves side to side.
Oh, and like Himalaya at Cedar Point.
Yeah,
So it's a really nice ride. Okay, excellent, very good.
And that points right to the expectations thing. Is that I didn't get on the last coaster today because I didn't get to ride the Wildcat because Madeline really wanted to ride Thunderbolt. So Dean rode the Wildcat, and I went and helped Madeline get what she wanted out of the day, and so everybody left happy.
And so by leaving happy, Andrew, was it good that EB missed the Wildcat?
Yes, because when you ride it, there are some pretty rough turns.
And so at the end of the day, leaving happy is so important. As we know, people get hot and tired at the end of a long day, and boy, especially when camping, people tend to wake up super early. So leaving happy sometimes is a hard thing to do, but really important. So thanks, EB, for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. This was a great day.
So thanks again to the 3 of them for providing us with some really good information and some different perspectives. Always nice to hear from kids on the podcast. That was our first time being that far west. And when we were looking on the map, we decided, all right, since we're going to be that far out, why not go to Six Flags Great America? We had never been there before. I had never been to Chicago. So this was a great opportunity for our first visit there. And there wasn't a ton that I really knew about the park. I knew about what coasters they had. It looked like a pretty good collection, but there wasn't a ton I really knew. I knew it was a busy park that could get crazy on weekends. We were at Michigan's Adventure on a Friday, so we were going to be at Great America on a Saturday. There was no way to avoid that. Generally as a family, we don't go to parks much in a weekend, especially not big parks like Great Adventure and Great America, but there was nothing we could do. Now, it's funny when we looked on the map and I put it into Google Maps and it's like, oh, it's barely over 100 miles. So if you were able to drive directly, it would be like an hour and a half. But unfortunately, there's that giant body of water in the way, and so it turned out to be a much longer drive than that. So we made that drive after Michigan's Adventure closed, and the kids were asleep by the time we drove past Chicago, so they didn't get a chance to see at least that night the Sears Tower. But it's a beautiful skyline, and to see it like that, and I call it the Sears Tower, even though I know it's not called that anymore. One of the weird things about driving through Chicago, I had never seen a major city that had train stations in the middle of a highway. That was kind of odd. You had traffic going both ways, so you saw it on the next day coming back?
Yeah.
Right? How weird is that? You know, a major highway on both sides, and then a train station in the middle of the highway. Kind of odd.
Yeah, who does that?
Chicago, apparently, I guess is the answer there. We knew it was going to be busy being that it was a Saturday, so we got there a good half hour before the park opened on that Saturday. And there weren't that many cars in the parking lot at that point. We stood in line, and here was probably the worst part of the day. So we get in line, and we don't really like to complain about much. We're not complainers. We like to enjoy our day. But what was the madness about waiting in that line for about 20 minutes, as they did let us in early?
So usually at the front of the park when you get in, they have this guy who reads safety tips for the park. And that just kept reading over and over again. We had to listen to the same thing like for about a half an hour.
Yeah, it was about that 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And the same thing over and over, that no running while walking to the front of Great America. We will be opening within the next half an hour. Just the same message over and over, and that was such poor planning.
Yeah, and they didn't even give you a break. They gave you like 10 seconds between each one. So it'd be like he gives his little speech, pause for a couple seconds, then he would give his speech again, and it was just so annoying.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing where for the next time, I think I would bring headphones for the three of us, or 4 or 5, however many came, just so that we wouldn't have to hear that over and over. But thankfully, they did open up, since the line was getting long, it was a little bit warm, and so they opened up the line early and let you go into the park before the rides opened, so that was kind of nice, so that we didn't have to deal with that. The beauty of this Saturday was the weather report. 60 to 70% chance of rain and possible thunderstorms. And this kept the crowds away. Such a perfect scenario. And really, how much rain did we get that day?
We got about 6 minutes, 7 minutes.
Of sprinkling, right?
Of sprinkling, yeah.
And so it looked out so well. There were almost no lines throughout the whole day, and that really made the day a better thing. Once we got in, we immediately sprinted over, even though we probably didn't need to sprint, but we headed over to Goliath. And that's something that you want to do. Always go to the most popular or the newest, most exciting ride. Who knows? That might be the Joker more for them now. I wonder if Joker lines or Goliath lines would be bigger right now.
I mean, so I would think the longest line before the sprinkler happened was probably Raging Bull, because that had a pretty long line. I don't think Goliath's line was too long. It went pretty fast, I think.
Yeah, so we headed over there, since by now that's only, about 3 years old now. I think this might be the 3rd operating year of Goliath, because that was one I think we were most excited to do. Of course, it has a 48-inch height requirement like all RMCs do, and so both boys could do it, so we headed there first. We got there, and there was about a 10-minute wait until it opened, and we started out towards the front, as Alex, who's always a little bit more nervous, likes to start out in the front, thinking and it's true, the drop is less scary in the front. And so what did you think of Goliath?
I thought it was a good coaster. I mean, it's not my favorite RMC. I definitely like the hang times. I thought the curves were just kind of meh.
Well, yeah, small footprint, probably in that way kind of similar to Wicked Cyclone. So less intense, and all of the different elements are more spaced out than Wicked Cyclone, which never really stops. But those hang time moments I thought were so graceful.
Yeah.
It was especially the first one where you really hang down upside down for a long time. Love the first drop. Really, really well done. And we did it 3 times in a row.
Yeah, I think that coaster is a great coaster. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, really well done. And we could have done it more times in a row if we wanted to, but we knew we had plenty else to do. So then we headed over to what was a beautiful structure, and it's one that you notice in so many parts of the park. There, American Eagle is a beautiful looking ride. It really is. Just the way it's built, the wood, the painting, it really is a nice ride to look at. From there, it wasn't that long of a walk. We headed over, and it's a strange ride to get to. It sort of goes over a couple of bridges. It goes over an abandoned antique car ride.
Yeah.
The track is just kind of rusting away there.
And you go near the, I think it's new, the Kittyland.
Oh, yeah. Their sort of Kidsopolis area. Their area that used to be a Wiggles area.
Yeah, and their Ripcord, I think that's also in a very weird place. They're both kind of hidden back in the park, so they're in a weird place.
Mm-hmm. And so as we were going across one of the bridges, we heard a voice behind us that said, "Hey, are you Adam from Coaster Radio? I recognize your voice." And we turned around, and I don't bring this up to state, oh my gosh, we have some kind of fame, in no way at all. But it was what formulated the rest of our day, as we were introduced to Paul, who is a season pass holder, and his home park is Six Flags Great America. And I thought he looked familiar, as he said he was at Hollywood Nights. That was only a couple weeks before that. And it was so great to meet him. He was there by himself that day, and he turned into our tour guide, talking about all the rides, everything he knew, its history, the best places to sit on each ride. And it turned out to be such a great stroke of luck that we ran into him at that point. So we all headed over to American Eagle, which just had one side running in the morning. Later on in the day, they opened up the other side. And we sat near the front of the train. And what did you think of American Eagle?
So, didn't we go on the blue side the first time?
And then it was red later?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I thought American Eagle was a great coaster. I mean, probably the best racing Woodies ever. Right in front of Rebel Yell.
Ooh, what about, hold on. Let's not make too many people angry. What about Lightning Racer at Hershey? I mean, you only did it once. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I didn't love Lightning Racer.
All right, well, we've got to try it more. We've only been to Hershey once and did it once, so we'll see it. Plus, we didn't do both sides, so we'll see. But immediately, I didn't really have any expectations about American Eagle, and after the first drop and the first airtime hill, I was yelling out to Paul, "Oh my gosh, this is great! It's so far above what I expected. What a great ride! Those first couple of hills are wonderful. That helix is mammoth. It just looks like one of the biggest helices we've ever been on."
That's a weird helix. Because
it's not necessarily fast like the Beast.
Yeah, it's pretty slow helix because there are breaks when you get to the top of the third airtime hill, I think.
I don't remember that, yeah.
Or, around fifth. It slows you down a lot.
Oh, after the helix? Coming back? Before, okay.
And around the last time we did it, it was racing.
Oh, yeah, later on, when we went on the second time, yep.
And we were beating the other train by a lot until we got to the helix, and we slowed down so much, and that's how we lost.
And they took the lead. But just wonderful. And one of the few Intamin traditional Woodies. Loved that ride. Obviously, they've done a lot of work in it. It was so super smooth and so much better than the Racer and Rebel Yell. Knowing that they're way, way, way older, and that's fun and an important part of history, but so much fun. Loved that ride. After that, we continued our journey, and we went to X-Flight next. And as you walk past X-Flight, there was almost no line. So we went in that, and Paul and I rode that. And it was very impressive. I really liked it. A couple of the low-to-the-ground movements around the grass, and a couple of those near misses with the towers. Really, really liked it. Really enjoyed it. Had a great time on that. Well, we went to Demon next. And Demon is an interesting ride that has all sorts of history and changed names. And what did you think of Demon?
I thought it was an interesting arrow looper.
Yeah.
Because the height was 42.
Very, very strange, right?
So you saw little kids doing it, and I was like, that was weird, because when we got off, they were like, they were crying, and it was just...
Oh, it's that second time that poor little girl, she was probably about 4, riding with her dad, and that I think was a bit too much for her, as she was crying the whole last 3/4 of the ride. I felt like saying, oh, it's okay, but really incredible. It's the only 42-inch arrow that I've ever heard of.
I love it. Has such great theming. The drop is good with... I think it has a little airtime, and on like the second tunnel, it has all these lights, and right after the turnaround, they have a monster school there.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And at the corkscrews, it gets really rough there.
A little bit, definitely.
But that's at the ending, so...
Yep. So overall, very impressive. And I know I said earlier, theming, I don't really care about much. But you take that same arrow without any lights, any of the tunnels, it's nowhere near as good of a ride. And so a really pleasant surprise. An arrow looper with some interest to it. Continuing on our walk from there, we ran into the Whizzer, which I knew about and I was excited about. So I was excited about Whizzer because we had done 2 Schwarzkopfs before. One of them was... Mindbender, which we really loved. And then Alex's very first upside-down coaster.
Super Duper Looper.
Super Duper Looper at Hershey.
Super Duper Pooper.
2 really fun... Looper? What?
Super Looper Pooper.
All right, so Whizzer. I knew it had the spiral powered lift, which was very cool and unique. But what I didn't know about Whizzer was the seating arrangement. What was that seating arrangement like?
It was kind of like the toboggan rides.
Yeah, like Avalanche at King's Dominion.
Yeah.
Or Flying Turns.
Yeah, and it was weird because it's a regular track and it just feels weird to be completely sitting down and...
Right, as opposed to being in a trough like Avalanche at King's Dominion. Here you're on a regular track. And so with that seating arrangement where you can... hold on to someone in front of you as it's 2 people per seat if you want. Really not much of a forceful ride, but some cute turns that goes through the trees, so I really like the setting. And it was a really nice surprise. Really enjoyed going on that. Oh, hold on. I'm getting a text message here. Whoa. We've got a buddy who's in a Cedar Fair executive meeting right now. We've got a special mic on him. You want to go listen? All right, hold on one sec. All right,
Hit it, Cedar Fair.
Yeah, we've got a spy in there. Hold on one sec. Let's hear what's going on.
Welcome, everyone. We have good news to report today. Cedar Fair Entertainment Company can report $524 million of net revenues, a $2 million increase through July 4th from last year. We have seen an increase in number of visits to 10.5 million, up 110,000 in this time period. Mystic Timbers, Cedar Point Shores, and Not Soak City editions have been wildly successful, and sales of all season dining and beverages, fun picks, and group business bookings have all been on the rise. With all of these positives, I have a secret weapon that we are preparing to release to further distance ourselves from Six Flags. Do you want to hear it? Our new business plan is Takis.
What?
Takis.
What?
You know, Takis. The snack, long chips that no one has ever heard of outside of a Six Flags park.
What?
Six Flags has had a monopoly on theme park advertising for too long. Darn it. We're here to take it back. Now, picture this. You're really rich and going to a Cedar Fair park and dislike the peasants in the regular line. So you're gonna buy a Fast Lane or Fast Lane Plus. Now, that black and yellow sign is pretty boring. What would make it so much better? Fast Lane, sponsored by Takis.
What?
We've heard from the coaster community that they love advertising in the park. Kia on El Toro, Snickers on Roar. That's theming and paid theming, so we want in. Think about it. Magnum XL 200, sponsored by Uline Gel Ice Packs. Flight Deck at Canada's Wonderland, sponsored by Band-Aid Bandages. And Iron Dragon, sponsored by 5 Hour Energy.
I didn't get a harumph out of that guy.
Oh my gosh, can you believe that? Advertising coming to Cedar Fair.
Takis! Oh my gosh. I was listening to that one guy who was like, what? He sounded confused. What?
Yeah, right? That's so weird. I don't know.
What?
So in this battle between Cedar Fair and Six Flags, so many Cedar Fair fanboys, oh, we hate that Six Flags advertising. Oh, it cheapens the experience. Well, just you wait. It's coming to Cedar Fair, it sounds like. All right, very interesting news. Thank you to our buddy behind the scenes. All right, after we did the Wizard, we decided to head over some food, and we liked the first meal there so well we went back a second time to JB's Barbecue and Sports Bar. One of the nice things about this in a park in the summer, getting into a restaurant with air conditioning makes such a big difference. And a really cool place to have a meal. Really nice to get into a restaurant for some air conditioning when it's a hot day out. And the food turned out to be really pretty good. We had Western bacon burgers and loaded nachos, which were the size of a truck's wheel. So much food, it was pretty crazy.
I was very glad that he gave us a tip, because it's not like your typical bad Six Flags burger. It blew my mind. It was so good.
Yeah, it was really nice. And it was a good chance to be able to sit down with Paul and learn about some of the events that they have at the park, things like the parades that they have at the end of the day, and different coaster events and that kind of thing. So a really nice chance to just relax for a bit.
Yeah, we should do those type of things for our tip of the day segments.
Uh-huh.
And the fries were actually really, really good.
Oh, okay. Well, which is good, because not all fries, Alex, are good at a theme park. That is excellent. Afterwards, I headed over with Paul, since it was a very short line, to Raging Bull, and it was a nice surprise. It gets blasted by a lot of people in terms of being very low down on their list of B&M hypers. The fact that it was different is what I liked. There was a little pre-drop there that gives you a different whip. We sat in the back, and that was a nice little change. It's the trim brakes on one of the hills that people complain about. And yes, it does slow you down. But for the first time being on it, I didn't really notice it too much, and I thought it was just fine.
I heard you guys talking about Apollo's Chariot with the similar pre-drop.
Which is a little bit longer, right?
Yeah. I can't wait to do my first B&M hyper. I mean, I've done Millennium Force and...
It is weird that, you can do a 300-foot coaster, but not a 200. But that is B&M,
well,
and that's their...
but I can do a 200.
Right, or just not that 200. So, yeah, that'll be exciting when you get to do that in October as the only 52-inch B&M hyper. Well, we were in that area. Andrew and Paul went on the giant drop ride, and you can see the picture of that on our Facebook page. Alex wasn't ready yet, although I think if we went today, he would go on giant drop, but that's something that we'll talk about in a couple of episodes with his newfound love of drop towers. So a little foreshadowing for things in the future. So I didn't get a chance to do it, but your review of giant drop at Six Flags Great America, what'd you think?
I think it's a lot like the one at King's Dominion and the ones at like Carowinds, Canada's Wonderland, and stuff like that. I think it's a mix of those two because it has the intensity and the height of the one at King's Dominion, and it has the look of the ones at Carowinds and Canada's Wonderland.
That's very perceptive of you. It's weird. Those are the second generation Intamins after the Demon Drop type rides. At Canada's Wonderland and at Carowinds, what's the height requirement on those?
Those are 54.
54 inches for those, and they're 200 feet. This one at 230 feet was 48 inches. It seems like there's no rhyme or reason between height requirements for a lot of those. But a good view of the park, I'm sure, and good intensity. So glad you got to ride on that. Interesting that Justin League was closed. I don't think we would have done it anyway if it was open, knowing that we were going to be at Great Adventure to try theirs. But it was closed all day due to some kind of malfunction. No big deal there. So then we decided to do some of the flat rides, and we headed around and did the Condor, the Carousel, which has the upper level, which is kind of neat. Something you've got to do. To be kind of up in the air on a carousel is just kind of a weird thing. So a very photogenic place in front of the fountains there. We did the Scenic Railway as well. Again, always nice to get on a train, get to see things that you might not normally see. So that was kind of neat as well. And we did one of the two log flumes there. I think it was the Yankee Clipper.
There's no, it wasn't the Yankee.
It wasn't? It was Loggers Run?
It was Loggers Run.
Okay, so you remember that better than I did. It's kind of interesting that you have two different rides that are intertwined. The stations are at different parts of the park. Usually it's just one log flume ride. One of them had the straight drop and the other one had the double drop, right?
Yeah, we did the one with the double drop, Loggers Run.
Yeah, which was unique. It made it a little bit different. So that was kind of nice. We didn't get too wet from what I remember.
I got super wet.
Oh, or you got super wet. You were the human shield, as you always called yourself. He sacrifices himself on log flumes and sits in the front.
Very front.
Yeah. Tries to protect everyone else from getting soaked. Well, the biggest surprise of the day, and we actually did it twice. Loved this ride so much. I had zero expectations, knew very little about it, but the biggest surprise of the day, Viper. Knew it was yeah, you're looking quizzical, like, oh, which one is that again?
Oh, it was the Woody. DCI, was it?
No, so that's the weird thing about what makes Viper so special. It was an in-house coaster, and it's a wonderful wooden coaster that I loved.
It was very smooth.
Oh my gosh. I've heard complaints about it in the past, but it's like they completely redid the whole thing and the trains. It was almost as smooth as Mystic Timbers, and that's something we'll talk about another time that we didn't get a chance to talk about. But there wasn't any rattle whatsoever. Had so many wonderful things. The little drop that sort of drops at an angle. You think you're going to go straight down, and then you curve a little bit to the left. That was great as we sat in the back. So many moments that I said to Paul, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So both of those Woodies between American Eagle and Viper were the biggest sort of surprises for a wooden coaster. Absolutely loved it. Terrific surprise moments that just make you laugh. I absolutely love Viper, and so that was my hidden gem of the park.
Good coaster, guys. You should try it.
We also did, in terms of flats, Triple Play, which is their scrambler. And what was unique about it was the setting. You had to go over a little creek. It was behind some buildings. It was kind of hidden. And I think it was painted like yellow and green, which kind of made it unique as well. But it was surrounded by trees and kind of hidden in its own spot. For this trip, we didn't do any of the clone coasters. We skipped Batman, Superman, Joker. Didn't do the water park as Andrew wanted to, but there just wasn't time for it. The Dark Knight and Vertical Velocity. At some point, if we get back there in the future, we might do those, but a lot of those are 54-inch rides that they couldn't do anyway. So we'll definitely try to get back there again. So towards the end of the day, when we walked back to the front after doing Goliath one more time after a little wait, there was a strange 20-minute wait that we had in line for Goliath, as I guess there was reported weather in the area that never came. We headed to the front of the park after that, and Paul and I said our goodbyes, took some pictures at the front, and again, a huge thank you to Paul for being a wonderful guide. Such a nice guy, so patient with the kids, which was great of him, and we really look forward to meeting him again in the future, both at Six Flags Great America and other enthusiast events, as I know he is pretty tied into the coaster community, so thanks again, Paul. So closing thoughts on the park. Overall, Andrew, what did you think of Six Flags Great America?
I thought it was definitely one of the best Six Flags parks ever. It was definitely a park I could compare a lot to. Right now, I think Six Flags Over Georgia is the most like it.
Yeah, I think that's really observant of you. They both have Schwarzkopfs. They both have lots of trees in certain areas. Maybe Over Georgia a little bit hillier. But, both the B&M Hyper, both have Batman and Superman. I think that, without ever thinking that, I think that's a great observation. I agree.
Yeah. I like that park.
Yeah, so one I definitely look forward to getting back to. Hopefully next time we'll meet a Little Spoon Kenny from In the Loop, as that's his home park, and we've been in touch with him a bit lately. Hopefully we can run into him and his little guy as well as he starts to ride maybe next year. Love the park. Can't wait to get back. A lot of good rides, and a lot of good rides that kind of surprised me that weren't rated all that high. Well, I think it's time for our ride of the day. Andrew picked out today's ride of the day, and what's that going to be?
Extreme Skyflyer.
All right, and so interesting that we have a ride that you've done that I haven't done yet. And where did you do the Extreme Skyflyer?
I'm not going to tell them that yet. I'm just going to tell them.
You're keeping them in suspense.
Yeah. I need to tell them what it is first.
Oh, okay.
So it is basically the ripcord that you see at every park. It's not quite the slingshots. It's the ones where you can have 1, 2, or 3 people, and it pulls you back with the 2 cables, and one of the cords lets you go, and you just soar through it. So I really liked that. It was really fun. I would do it again. There are bigger. I've seen bigger. Mm-hmm. And it was just really cool to have that experience where there's nothing below you and you're just soaring through the sky. I really liked it.
Where'd you do it?
Kings Island.
Kings Island. And it's interesting because he did it with his mom.
And
it was the last 2 weeks of August. So it was really late in the year. In Ohio, at that point, schools were back in session, so they had a ridiculous rate for it. How much was it per person?
$5 per person.
It was in the afternoon. It was $5 per person. I was with Maddie and Alex, so I didn't do it. I would do it in the future at some point, I think, but I just didn't do it that day. So you liked it. Very unique, very different.
I really liked it. It was so fun.
If you think about doing slingshots or those ripcord kind of rides,
I would
later in the day, it could be cheaper, so check that out. All right, so overall you like the ride and you recommend it.
Yep.
All right, Alex, hit it.
Tip of the day, tip of the day. It's the tip of the day. Tip of the day, tip of the day. It's the tip of the day. Yeah. Tip of the day. It's the tip of the day.
All right.
Tip of the day. Tip of the day. It's the tip of the day. Put up.
Our tip of the day for this week. Check out height requirements on the website prior to going to the park. For a lot of rides, you'll see two different heights. One will be the height to ride alone, and another will be the height to ride with a parent. And sometimes those can be radically different. Something we'll talk about in the future episode, how we got on a lot of rides recently with Maddie, our 2-year-old toddler, which might be a little surprising to think of what some kids can get onto. So there's some surprise there. So definitely check it out. Make sure you look at all rides and what the potential height restrictions are. It can make your day a lot more enjoyable as you can plot that out, knowing which rides you can go on. Kind of like at Michigan's Adventure, I know EB was surprised to see that the Sea Dragon, their rocking boat ride in the lake there, was with a parent. You could ride as long as the child could walk. All right, so something to think about. Check out those height restrictions and see which rides that you can do. Well, thanks so much for joining us for this episode. Again, our next episode will focus on Great Adventure, many different aspects to it with our Park of the Month, where we'll give you lots of tips, details, the nitty-gritty, as many different tips and interesting things about it, as that's a park that we know quite well. You can follow us at Twitter at Theme Park Fam, F-A-M, Theme Park Fam.
And so it's exciting because you told me that we had 111 followers on Twitter.
No, Facebook.
Facebook?
Yep, so that is exciting, exactly. Big numbers as they keep rising and rising. Speaking of Theme Park Families, you can find us on Facebook there. And again, subscribe on iTunes if you've liked the show so far. One thing that we didn't talk about with what's going to be a future interactive question is I was able to organize it that Goliath was my 200th coaster. And so kind of a fun 200th, as that was a coaster that I love. I've loved every single RMC I've been on so far. A future interactive question again, you could send us a message on Facebook. You can send us an MP3 recording at themeparkfamilies@gmail.com. That's ThemeParkFamilies @gmail.com.
We would love that.
Yeah, we would love that. So that'll be in a few episodes that we'll be doing that. Where just let us know. Was it the first coaster that was something unique that you had a memorable ride? Number 5, number 10, 20, 50, 100, 200? What were some momentous coasters from your history? Andrew likes fishing and he even caught a trout.
Thanks for listening. Right on. See you next time. Andrew out.